Is it a messaging problem or is it a deal problem? Because when they explain the deal, that's the problem.
Well, it's both. Both things could be true. Presidents typically send their vice president out in the field when they have a messaging problem. Remember Kamala Harris and being the border czar under Joe Biden. So this isn't that different. What is different, however, is number one, J.D. Vance's seemingly willingness to do it, because at some point you would, if he was against it initially, and it isn't going in the right direction for this country and certainly for the president, if he has aspirations in 2028, how does he distance himself from what's happening right now? That to me is a big problem that he's going to have to confront in a couple of years. But in this moment, Donald Trump tries to sell the military, a military victory, J.D. Vance on a diplomatic one, and nobody's buying it because, as you said, and as others have said, as soon as he opens his mouth, Iran's like, "Nah, we didn't really say that. Let's go do something else." And the voter, the American voter, doesn't believe either of them generally, right? They're saying, you know, for whatever bravado you come out with to give us some kind of indication that America has won this fight, my gas prices are still up, my groceries are still expensive, and something we don't talk about as much, bankruptcies and foreclosures have double-digit increases. So tell the American voter, prove to them that you've won this fight, especially when 60% says that it wasn't worth it.
Even American businesses, like you can even put the specifics of the war aside. When you talk about how strong the market is and how well big business is doing, it's a sliver of giant tech companies that are killing it. Go just below that, and companies big, medium, and small are suffering here. Can we talk about this Iranian oil? Because the Treasury Department has now authorized the production, the delivery, and the sale of Iranian oil for the next 60 days in U.S. dollars. How is this not a gargantuan win for Iran?
It's a massive win. And I mean, honestly, I think the Iranians are probably thinking to themselves, gosh, we thought we were doing well with the Obama deal. This is way better. I mean, this is almost like one of those, you know, supermarket game shows where you just try to sweep as many groceries into the shopping cart as quickly as possible. I mean, I think it's a huge win. It's one of the reasons why, and I thought the MS Now reporting on this was very interesting, that talked about how Marco Rubio has been trying to distance himself from all of this. 2028 is looming in the horizon over all of this. Where's Pete Hegseth and all of those, you know, all that bravado we would see at those Pentagon briefings, swanning around and, you know, doing push-ups and talking about how, you know, how they're kicking Iran's butt, you know, in the Strait of Hormuz and so on. None of that is happening anymore. I think part of the reason why is because Rubio has said, and some of these 2028 hopefuls have said, you know, we don't want to be anywhere near this right now.
Okay, can we go back to the Iranian oil? Because one could say, well, maybe it's a win for Trump in that oil prices are going to go down. And the average American voter, the farmer out there, certainly cares about the price of diesel. They care about the price of the gas they put in their car. However, it completely negates why we went into this war.
It's not enough oil to bring down the global prices. Iran only produces 3% of the oil. The key thing to bring down prices is to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. It's a huge boon. This is the first time in decades that Iran can sell oil on the free market. So there's countries bidding for this oil. They're desperate for it now. They're going to get much more money than they got in the past. And this is much better than the JCPOA in terms of the amount of income Iran is going to get from this, just hands down.
How big of a deal is it that the president is not talking about it, right? This administration and Republicans for months and months have been begging Trump to go on the road and talk about the economy, right? He's been supposed to do this for the last 10 months, hasn't done it. Now here we are, right, in the throes of this deal, which he would argue is a huge win for the leader of the free world. And he's in PA at a Mack truck factory saying everything's hunky-dory with the economy.
Well, because I don't think anybody believes him. And, you know, owing to both of your points, you know, I just can't help but think that Donald Trump is going to come out at the end of this where Barack Obama started, right? Where and so, yeah, this is likely a much better deal for the Iranians than ever existed under the Obama administration. And when as you're starting to see Republicans pull away, little by little, not en masse, but little by little, they're starting to find their backbone a little bit on some issues, not necessarily just Iran. But what that suggests to me is that there was a period of time when Republicans had no autonomy because it was always about Donald Trump. But this issue here is what is starting to drive a wedge, because what are they going to go back to their districts to discuss with their voters? And Democrats have been overperforming in races all year. And these are senators, statewide elected officials. So even if Democrats may have issues with districts that have been changed because of this midterm redistricting, statewide, they're going to come out in substantial numbers and make some real dents.
Are some of these Republicans finding their voices now because the primaries are largely behind us?
To some extent, but look at also, and Cornyn, who, lost his primary after a period of time when he was, doing everything that Donald Trump wanted him to do. And what good did that do him? And I think more and more are starting to find out that there is no benefit trying to appease Donald Trump.
How are Republicans going to take this, right? A MS Now reporter is talking to the Pentagon, and they learned from a source that the Pentagon is likely going to be asking for $80 billion, additional dollars, for this war in Iran. How are Republican lawmakers going to take this?
Yeah, they're not going to take it well. And, I mean, that's been one of the underreported elements of this entire exercise, is that munitions have been depleted. This has been a huge hit to American military strength. You could make, I think, a very compelling case, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that this is a dangerous deal that Donald Trump has cut with the Iranians, if it is even a deal at this point. He just the other day he was talking about, I like some of these guys. They should be able to have their missiles. The other guys in the region have their missiles. Why can't the Iranians? I mean, if any
and
other...
if you like him, he likes you.
Exactly. Are they passing notes in class? What's happening here? And to me, getting back to the economy of all of this, the fact that he's going out there so sparingly to talk to voters about the economy heading into the midterms is absolutely toxic for the Republican Party right now. I mean, this is a massive problem in terms of inflation, obviously, because of what's happening at the price at the pump. But I mean, just the other day, as you know, Stephanie, all too well, the Fed did not lower interest rates. And so people are hurting all across this country, and in particular, Trump voters in those deep red MAGA areas of this country. That is absolutely poisonous for the Republican brand right now.
Let's talk about this depleted missile stockpile. Trump is supposedly going to meet with military contractors tomorrow to talk about this. What do you know?
Well, the president is claiming there is no depleted stockpile and everything's fine. That was a statement we got from the White House. But it's clearly depleted. If China were to invade Taiwan tomorrow, we don't have enough missiles to stop them. And the broader lesson of this war is that if you can sort of outlast the United States for 2 months or so, if you can cause casualties, like actually force American ground troops into fighting, we'll give up, or at least Donald Trump will. So it's an extraordinary sign of weakness from this president who promised to be incredibly strong. Can I say one more thing about J.D. Vance?
Of course you can.
Just what the president is doing to his successor, to the long-term future of the Republican Party.
Assuming he wants J.D. Vance to be his successor.
But one of these former senior administration officials said the president doesn't support his subordinates. Yeah. He doesn't reward them. He undermines them. It's a pattern. This is a former official from the first administration. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can get into his private sector track record. You know that.
Can I just say, it's a pattern, right? Correct. If you decide to date the guy who's been a jerk to every girl who's ever dated him before, you ain't going to change him, sis. Whose fault is that?
It's both people's fault. But I just want to say, with J.D. Vance, it's the president who's put him in this situation. It's by going to war, it's the president who's putting it in it now. And then Vance is trying to sell this idea that this new regime is different, and maybe these guys want to be rich. Maybe they want to live like the Saudis and be part of the global economy. J.D. Vance has made that argument publicly. I talked to experts about this, and again, former administration officials, and they said Vance is either lying to the American public because he knows that's a ridiculous argument, or he's fundamentally ignorant about the nature of the Iranian regime. And the sense is, before we went to war, Trump and the 4 or 5 people around him were fundamentally ignorant about the Iranian regime. I spoke to someone who negotiated with the Iranians, in the past, in his first term, and they were like, I knew from the beginning the Iranians were going to drag out talks, play the clock during the war. They are revolutionaries.
Okay, but then aren't either answer a huge problem? Either he's a liar or grossly ignorant. This is a war we're talking about.
It's an incredible problem, right, for him to have and for the Republicans to have. To your point as well, how do you go out and sell this? And what Republican is going to carry your water in a tough district, in a tough race? Because everyone who's supported this president, to your point, no one no one gets the head nod and the attaboy, and I'm going to carry you with me. I think in some ways Marco Rubio is probably, in a sports analogy, the most improved player, because he's at least the one. He's at least the one person that the president can sort of rely on, but also knows when to kind of step down, step away, and out of the spotlight for a little bit. J.D. Vance can't do that.
I've been told that Rubio is the most skilled at basically managing the president.
Yeah.
Well,
and guess where he spends all of his time? In the White House, not the State Department. Where does John Ratcliffe, who's also in this circle now, spend the vast majority of his time? In the White House. FaceTime with the boss. And it's all about pleasing this one person. And look, I'm afraid of my boss. You know, it's hard to talk to your boss, but this is a president who just wants unflinching loyalty and doesn't want to be challenged.
last point to you.
No, and the other thing we should point out is the most crowded place in the world is under the Trump bus. And,
I thought we were going to say in the Oval Office.
No, well,
no.
that's a different story.
Very funny, Jim Acosta.
Well, thank you. But no, I think Marco Rubio is playing it exactly right. He knows that this is not anything that's going to be helpful to the Republicans heading into 2028, and so he's ducking and covering. But make no mistake, Donald Trump has a credibility crisis right now. He cannot even win the war against algae. He can't book Millie. He can't book Milli Vanilli these days. You know that
MVP.
You know
right there.
it ain't looking good, Steph.